The lake stretched out black and still under a moonless sky. Thomas sat at the end of the wooden dock, legs dangling over the edge, a fishing rod beside him that hadn't moved in hours. He wasn't really fishing. He was just sitting, because sitting here felt better than being in the house where Ellen's things were still in the closet, and her coffee mug still sat on the kitchen counter. 3 months since the funeral. Everyone said it would get easier. It hadn't. The cabin behind him belonged to Ellen's sister, who'd insisted Thomas use it whenever he needed. "Get away from the house," she'd said. "Change of scenery might help." But Thomas had discovered that grief traveled with you. It didn't matter if you were in your kitchen or sitting by a lake 2 hours north. The weight was the same. He'd driven up Friday evening, told himself he'd fish, maybe read, maybe sleep better away from the empty bed. Instead, he'd spent both nights on this dock, staring at water so dark it looked like a hole in the world. Thomas heard footsteps on the dock behind him, slow, careful steps on old wood that creaked with each footfall. He didn't turn around. Probably someone from one of the other cabins, restless like him, drawn to the water in the small hours when sleep wouldn't come. "Mind some company?" a man's voice asked. Southern accent, tired in a way that went beyond one sleepless night. "Dock's open to everyone," Thomas said. The man sat down a few feet away, leaving respectful space between them. Thomas glanced over. Heavy-set figure, dark jacket, face mostly in shadow. The man pulled out a pack of cigarettes, offered one. "Don't smoke," Thomas said. "Smart." The man lit one for himself, the flame briefly illuminating his face. Older than Thomas expected. 40, maybe. Heavy features, dark hair slicked back, sideburns. Something familiar about him that Thomas couldn't place, like seeing an actor whose name you can't remember. They sat in silence. The lake lapped quietly against the dock posts with a rhythm that was almost hypnotic. Somewhere across the water, a nightbird called, long and mournful, like it was looking for something it had lost. "You come here often?" the man asked finally, his voice barely above a murmur. "Used to come with my wife. Now I come alone." "She doesn't like fishing?" Thomas's throat tightened the way it always did when he had to say it. "She died. January." The man was quiet for a moment. Not the uncomfortable silence people usually filled with platitudes, but a silence that felt like respect. "I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Doesn't make it less true." Thomas picked up a pebble from beside him, tossed it into the water. The splash seemed too loud in the stillness, ripples spreading out in concentric circles, until they disappeared into darkness. "What about you? What brings you to a dock at midnight?" "Needed somewhere quiet, somewhere I could think without." The man trailed off, took a long drag on his cigarette. "Without being who I'm supposed to be." "I get that." They sat without talking for a while. Thomas found it oddly comfortable, this silence with a stranger. There was no pressure to explain or pretend or be okay. No one telling him it was time to move forward, to get back out there, to remember that Ellen would want him to be happy. A cool breeze moved across the water, carrying the smell of pine and damp earth and something else, that particular scent of a lake at night, mineral and ancient and timeless. "How long were you married?" the man asked. 26 years. Met her when I was 22. She was a waitress at a diner on Route 9. I was working construction. She laughed at something I said. Can't even remember what. And I knew right then. That's a good run. Not long enough. Thomas stared at the water, at his own dim reflection. Doctor said she had 6 months. She had 3. Cancer moved fast. Too fast. One day she was tired. Next day she couldn't get out of bed, and then she was in the hospital, and then she was gone. I kept thinking there'd be time. Time to say things. Time to do things. Time to just sit and be with her. But time just ran out. The man nodded slowly, like he understood something about time running out. What didn't you get to say? Thomas felt his chest tighten. No one had asked him that. They'd asked how he was doing, if he needed anything, if he'd thought about grief counseling. But no one had asked about the words left unspoken. Everything that mattered. Thank you. I see you. You were enough just as you were. His voice cracked. That I was scared. That I didn't know how to live without her. That she made me better than I was alone. You think she didn't know those things? I don't know. Maybe. But I should have said them anyway. Should have said them every day, instead of assuming there'd always be tomorrow. The man flicked ash into the water, watched it float for a moment before disappearing. My mama died 2 years ago. I was on the road, got the call at 2 a.m, tried to get home fast as I could, chartered a plane, drove like hell from the airport. Made it 2 hours after she passed. Just 2 hours. Sat beside her bed anyway. Held her hand even though it was already cold. Talked to her. Told her everything I never said when I had the chance. Maybe she heard. Maybe she didn't. But I said it. Does that help, saying it after? A little. Not enough, but a little. The man's voice was rough with old grief. Still feels like I failed her. She believed in me before anyone else did. Sacrificed everything so I could chase a dream. And I got so caught up in that dream that I forgot to just be with her. To sit at her kitchen table and drink coffee and let her fuss over me. All the success in the world doesn't mean much when the person you most want to share it with is gone. Thomas looked at the stranger. In the dim light from the distant cabins, he could see the man's face better now. There was grief there, worn into the lines around his eyes, carried in the set of his shoulders. This wasn't someone offering empty comfort. This was someone who knew the territory of loss intimately. What do you do? Thomas asked. For work. I sing, perform, travel a lot. Too much, probably. Must be hard, being away from home so much. Home's complicated. Sometimes being away feels easier than being there. All the expectations, all the people wanting things, needing things. He paused, staring out at the dark water. But then you're alone in hotel rooms at 4 a.m. and you wonder what the point is. All that success, all that noise, if you can't share it with the people who actually matter. If you can't just be yourself with someone who sees past all the rest of it. Your wife understand that? Not married. Never seemed like the right time, or the right person, or maybe I was just scared. Of what? Of not being enough. Of someone seeing past the surface and deciding what's underneath isn't worth staying for. Of giving someone that power and having them walk away. Thomas understood that fear in a way he never had before Ellen died. Ellen used to say I was enough just by being there, just by showing up. Took me 26 years to believe her. And then she was gone, and I realized I'd wasted so much time doubting something she never questioned. A stronger breeze moved across the water now, carrying the smell of pine and damp earth and the promise of rain. The man finished his cigarette, stubbed it out carefully, pocketed the butt instead of tossing it in the lake. Can I ask you something? The man said. Sure. Do you regret it? The 26 years? Do you wish you'd never met her so it wouldn't hurt like this? Thomas thought about it. Really thought about it. Not the automatic answer people expected, but the truth. No, never. Not for a second. The hurt means it was real, means it mattered, means I was lucky enough to have something worth losing. If I could go back, knowing exactly how it would end, I'd do it all again. Every moment, every day, even the hard ones, even knowing how it ends. The man's voice was quiet when he spoke. That's brave. It's not brave. It's just love. Real love doesn't calculate risk, doesn't protect itself, doesn't hold back because it might hurt later. It just is. It gives everything and hopes for the best. I think I've been protecting myself my whole life. From what? From this. From caring so much that losing it destroys you. From being that vulnerable. From giving someone that much power over whether you survive or fall apart. And how's that working out? The man laughed, but it was a sad sound that got lost in the darkness. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I'm sitting on a dock at midnight talking to a stranger because I can't connect with anyone who knows me. I'm surrounded by thousands of people every day, and I'm completely alone. I perform for crowds and come back to empty rooms. That's what protecting yourself gets you. Safety and loneliness. At least you know it. That's something. Is it enough? I don't know, but it's a start. Being aware of the problem is how you begin fixing it. They sat with that truth hanging between them. The night was deep now, that darkest hour before dawn starts thinking about arriving. The kind of darkness that feels absolute, like the sun might never rise again, even though you know it will. You know what Ellen told me, Thomas said. 2 days before she died. She was barely conscious by then, in and out, mostly just sleeping. But she opened her eyes and looked right at me and she said, "Tom, don't disappear." I asked her what she meant. She squeezed my hand and said, "When I'm gone, don't disappear into the grief. Don't become a ghost. Stay here. Stay alive. Keep living. Promise me." Did you promise? Yeah, I promised. Held her hand and promised. Thomas's voice broke. But I don't know how to keep it. I come here every night because I don't know where else to go. The house is full of her. Every room has memories. The town is full of places we went together. I feel like I'm already disappearing. Already becoming exactly what she asked me not to become. The man turned to look at him directly. Even in the darkness, Thomas could feel the weight of that gaze. The attention and focus of someone who was really listening. You're not a ghost. You're here. You're breathing. You're talking to me. That's staying alive. That's keeping your promise. It doesn't feel like enough. But it is. Right now, barely surviving is the same as fully living. Showing up is enough. Being here is enough. The rest will come. You don't have to be okay. You just have to be here. Tell me about her, the man said. Ellen. Not about losing her. About who she was. Thomas felt something loosen in his chest. Everyone wanted to talk about how he was coping, but no one wanted to hear about Ellen. Like mentioning her would make it worse, would open wounds that should be allowed to close. But Thomas wanted to talk about her. Needed to keep her alive in the only way he could now. Stubborn. God, she was stubborn. Once she decided something, that was it. No changing her mind. But she was kind too. The kind that actually cost something. She'd give away our last $20 if someone needed it more. Funny in this quiet way that snuck up on you. She'd say something completely deadpan, and you wouldn't realize it was a joke until 5 seconds later. The man smiled. She sounds special. She loved birds, cardinals especially. Used to keep feeders all over our yard, 6 of them at one point. She'd stand at the kitchen window with her coffee every morning watching them. Cardinals were her favorite. The red ones. She said they looked like hope, like something impossibly bright in a gray world. That's beautiful. She was beautiful. Not in a magazine way or anything like that. In a real way. The way she'd look at you and really see you. Really pay attention. The way she'd listen when you talked. Like nothing else mattered right then. She made you feel like you were worth her time. Worth her attention. Like you mattered in a world that mostly makes you feel invisible. That's rare. I know. I knew it then too. That's what kills me now. I knew how lucky I was. Told myself every day how lucky I was. And I still took days for granted. Still got annoyed about stupid things. Still wasted time on things that didn't matter. Still checked out sometimes, distracted by work or TV, or nothing at all. All that time I could have been more present, and I just wasn't. You were human, that's allowed. Is it? Feels like I should have done better. Should have loved her better while I had the chance. The man was quiet for a long moment, smoking, thinking. I think that's what everyone feels. That they should have done better, loved harder, been more present, said the right things at the right time. But we're all just doing our best with what we know. We're all stumbling through trying to connect, trying to love, trying to be enough. And mostly we fail. But sometimes we succeed. And those moments of success are what matter. You sound like you've thought about this a lot. I have. More than I'd like. Especially lately. You get to a certain age, and you start seeing the end. Not tomorrow or next year, but out there in the distance. And you start counting what matters. Start adding up what you've done with your time. And you realize you've spent a lot of years on things that don't actually matter at all. What matters to you? Thomas asked. If you had to say right now. The man considered it. Honestly, I'm still figuring it out. Music matters. When it's real, when it connects with people, when it says something true. My family matters, my daddy, the people who've stuck with me. Real connection, not the surface stuff, not the performance, but actual human connection. Moments like this, maybe, where two people can just be honest without pretending everything's fine, where you can sit in the dark with a stranger and tell the truth. That is rare. It is. That's why it matters so much when you find it. A fish jumped somewhere out in the darkness, the splash echoing across the still water. Thomas felt something shift in his chest. Not relief, exactly, not healing, but something looser. Like a knot had been untied slightly. Like he could breathe a little deeper than he had in months. You're easy to talk to, Thomas said. I haven't talked to anyone. Not really. Not since Ellen. People ask how I am, but they want me to say I'm fine. They want me to be okay so they can stop worrying. You don't seem to need that. I don't need anything from you. I'm just here. Same as you. Just trying to get through the night. They stayed until the sky began to lighten. Not sunrise yet, but that pale gray that comes before, when the world shifts from black to charcoal to something almost visible. The stars faded one by one. The lake became visible, its surface like dark glass, perfectly still. The man stood up slowly, stretching, joints audibly cracking. I should go. Got a long drive ahead. Need to be somewhere by tomorrow. Thomas stood too, his legs stiff from sitting so long in the cold. Thanks. For sitting with me. For listening. For not needing me to be okay. Thank you. For letting me sit here. For being honest. For reminding me what matters. That's a gift. A real one. They stood facing each other on the dock. Two men who'd shared something real without knowing each other's names. without needing credentials or explanations. "I hope you figure it out," Thomas said. "What matters? I hope you find that connection you're looking for. I hope you keep your promise to Ellen. Stay here. Stay alive. Don't disappear. She was right about that. The world needs people like you in it." The man started to walk away, footsteps echoing on the wooden planks. Then he paused, turned back. "Thomas, the cardinals. Keep the feeders full. The red ones will come back. That's not nothing. That's her still with you. That's hope." Thomas felt his eyes burn. "How did you—" "I didn't tell you my name." "You did. Earlier. Maybe you don't remember. Long night." But Thomas didn't remember. He was certain he hadn't said his name. The man kept walking, footsteps receding down the dock, back toward the parking lot, disappearing into the grey dawn like smoke dissipating. Thomas stood alone at the end of the dock, watching the sky lighten degree by degree, feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Not happiness, not peace, not closure, but a sense that maybe he could survive this, that barely hanging on was the same as staying alive, that showing up for another day was keeping his promise to Ellen. He went back to the cabin, made coffee, sat on the porch, and watched the sun actually rise, painting the lake in shades of pink and gold. He thought about the man from the dock, about how you could share your deepest truths with a stranger more easily than with people who knew you, about how sometimes the right words from the right person at the right moment could shift something fundamental. When he drove home that afternoon, Thomas stopped at a hardware store, bought bird seed, 4 different kinds for different birds, but especially the blend. The woman at the counter said cardinals liked best. He filled the feeders for the first time since January. All 6 of them positioned around the yard where Ellen had placed them. Made coffee using Ellen's favorite mug, the one with the faded blue flowers that she'd had since before they were married. Sat at the kitchen table and let himself cry. Then he washed the mug, dried it, put it in the cupboard with the others, not forgetting, not moving on, just making space to keep living. The days that followed were still hard, still heavy, but Thomas got up each morning, filled the feeders, drank his coffee, went to work at the hardware store where he'd been employed for 30 years, came home, sat on the back porch and watched for cardinals. 2 weeks later, he was in the grocery store when he heard it. A voice on the radio overhead. That same tired, gentle voice from the dock. The DJ was talking about Elvis Presley, some new album, an upcoming show at the community center. Thomas stood frozen in the cereal aisle, box of cornflakes in his hand. That voice, those words, that same way of speaking that felt less like talking and more like sharing something precious. He went home, left the groceries in the car, went inside and found Ellen's old record player in the basement, found the albums she'd kept, a small collection including 2 Elvis records from the 50s. Put one on, listened to that voice. Then he went to the library, looked up recent photos in magazines, found the face he'd seen in darkness on the dock. Heavier now than in the old photos, older, but unmistakably the same man. Elvis Presley had sat on a dock with him at midnight, had listened to him talk about Ellen, had told him to stay alive, had known about the cardinals without being told, had shared his own grief, his own loneliness, his own struggle to figure out what mattered. Thomas sat in the library parking lot for an hour, crying, laughing, shaking his head in disbelief. He never told anyone. Not Ellen's sister, not his brother, not the guys at work. Kept it private, sacred. something too precious to expose to questions and speculation and the weird machinery of fame. But on hard days, and there were many hard days still, he'd think about that night, about a stranger who'd needed quiet and found it beside another person barely surviving, about how sometimes the people who seem to have everything are carrying the heaviest weights, about how real connection can happen in the strangest places between the most unlikely people. The Cardinals came back. Thomas kept the feeders full, watched them every morning with his coffee, saw the bright red flash of wings, and remembered Ellen saying they looked like hope. And when he sat on the back porch at dusk, watching the day fade, he didn't feel quite so alone. Somewhere out there, someone else was sitting on their own porch, looking at their own sky, trying to figure out what mattered and how to keep going. Maybe that was enough. Maybe barely surviving was its own kind of victory. Maybe showing up each day was all anyone could do. The light moved across the water. Morning came. The Cardinals returned. And Thomas was still here, still alive, still keeping his promise. That's what remains. That's what echoes. Not the fame or the legend or the name. Just two people on a dock at midnight, sharing the weight, making it bearable for a few hours. Just the truth that you can save someone's life without even knowing it. That kindness between strangers can be everything. That being seen, really seen, when you feel invisible, can give you a reason to stay. Just that. Just staying alive when everything says stop. Just showing up for another day. Just hope in the form of a red bird at a feeder. Just enough.